Hey everybody, Savage Lands News coming in after the conclusion of the Dusk Till Dawn spoiler season, and I cannot wait to get my hands on these cards, man. I haven't been this excited about a set in a long time, even though it didn't really impact Rhinar too much. I'm still super pumped because Levia looks sick, Vincent looks sick, some of the tools that these other heroes got are really interesting. And you know, I'm a big Prism hater, but this new version of Prism, kind of down for him. But let's start off at the bottom. Let's go down to our trusty old heroes before we dive into these new ones. All right, so we can start here. We got 3 new lightning or elemental cards, right? We got Anthem of Spring, Northern Winds, Call Down Lightning. These cards are flavorful. I think it just gives, they're obviously tied into the Dusk Till Dawn story a bit because we know Oldhim, Briar, and Lexi were there in the action fighting in the Unity mechanic. I'm a little sad Rhinar didn't get into Unity. I know it doesn't thematically fit, but Rhinar loves the block, so Unity might have been actually kind of rad. But they're toolbox cards overall. They're pretty good, and they have uses. They're one-ofs, so definitely interesting cards. I don't know if they're really going to break anything, especially now that Oldham's out, but Briar's is pretty okay. But let's get into the fun here. My spoiler card, Rugged Roller. Am I going to run this card? Probably not. In Rhinar? No, I don't think so. The EV on Rugged Roller gets better and better the more you roll on a single turn, not rolling once. Rolling once per turn, this weapon kind of isn't that great, right? It's got an expected value of about 1, right? Even if you were to roll scabs on every single 2-card 6 you have, the EV really just isn't there. Now, doing 12 damage off of 2 cards every once in a while is backbreaking. If it comes at the right moment, rad, right? You could also do a 2-card 10 with Pummel. You can pummel Rugged Roller because it is a brute weapon and it's a club. So you could 2-card 10, you can 2-card 12 this with scabs hitting, but realistically that's not going to happen. However, with KO, if you roll 4 times a turn, you're rolling scabs, you're rolling on your attacks, you're rolling on any of his roll cards, use a specialization, Rugged Roller is going to suddenly just do too much damage. So I think it's more of like a KO-y kind of blitzy card, right? Scowling Flesh Bag. Okay, I think there's a theme I want to cover here with the remaining of these cards. They're really toolbox cards, which I'm super, super excited about. They're not like game breaking. They don't really alter Rhinar's playstyle too much at all. They don't really change much, but they're more cards that we can add into our toolbox to deal with changes of the meta. So keep that in mind. Scowling Flesh Bag. This, when it defends, intimidates your opponent's hand. One of the cards in their hand will go down into their banish zone and they won't get it back until their end step. So this has an enormous impact on certain matchups. Briar, mostly Viscerai, right? Getting rid of that Revel in Runeblood. Briar, getting rid of a 7 damage attack on a Channel Mount heroic turn. So against certain heroes, this card is going to come in, but it's fighting over one of our best equipment slots, right? Crown of Providence is nuts. Getting rid of CNCs, pummels is crazy. Fixing Blood Rush hands is really good. Our AB2 helmet is also there, right? So it's coming in like one of our better equipment slots, unfortunately, but in the right matchup, this card's going to be nuts. However, I think it's going to be a test of both our skill and our opponent's skill, which is kind of the way it should be. Just like we adapted to deal with Stalagmite from Oldhim on our Blood Rush turns, our opponents will probably be able to react and deal with Scowling Flesh Bag on their big turns. So it's really going to be up to you to maximize the value of this card. Numbskull. Right? Numbskull is an interesting one because I think it's a little too safe, to be honest. But Numbskull's attack value, cost value, and pitch value cannot be modified. Crazy, huh? So Ice Lexi with an Ice Quake, hitting you with 7 Frostbites, ending on an Arctic Incarceration, you can still send this for 6 on a 2-card hand. Crazy. If Prism sends an Erudition at you when they're holding a Blinding Beam in their hand, you pop this out there, too bad. It's going to get popped, right? It does have some downsides, though. And the downsides are pretty bad, right? Can't get buffed by Blood Rush. Can't get buffed by Barraging Beatdown. Can't be hit with Reinforced Align. Can't be buffed by Art of War. Can't be used defensively with Art of War. Or increased defensively with Art of War. So I kind of wish this was our first 2 for 6 yellow. Honestly, that would have made this card insane. Because, like, it can't be buffed by our attacks anyways. So it wouldn't have been useful on a Blood Rush Bellows turn. But it would have been nice if it was either a 7 damage attack or if it was a yellow. But if the ice meta comes back, if Prism's too hard to beat normally, Numbskull is going to be good. Dig Up Dinner. This is a really weird one. I mean, it has all of the parts of a card that I like. Blue, blocks 3, 1 cost, go again on it. It can heal you. It's an anti-recursion, or it's a recursion tool, anti-fatigue tool. So if everything lines up perfectly, this is a 1 for 6 value. And sometimes getting cards back in your deck is worth way more than just 1, right? It can heal you 3, put 3 cards back in your deck, and make you pretty much unfatigable. Granted, we don't really get fatigued, right? Our hero ability kind of doesn't let people fatigue us more often than not. So it's kind of a weird one. My main problem with this card, honestly, is that it shuffles your deck. Okay, so it's going to be more often than not that it makes your blood rushes go further away, because you're going to play this when you're like 15% of the way through your deck, 20% of the way through your deck, and then suddenly that 20% goes back in and now your blood rushes are pushed down. But in like a heal deck, a fatigue deck, a turtley Rhinar, this card's nuts. Okay, Starstruck. Nuts. Bravos rejoice around the planet. This card is crazy. Guardians didn't get very much this set, but this card by itself for Bravo is really strong. And then weirdly, Dory got quite a few cards. Now, I mean, Axe Dory is still kind of an interesting one. I'm so happy they finally gave her a sword and board kind of playstyle. I think this is rad. Iron Song Versus is competing for another really good card, right? This one has temper, so this one doesn't have infinite value like her current one. They do block the same amount though, which is crazy. I think good Dory players are going to be pushing this card to see what it can do. And then the rest of her cards, this is like a Blitz card. And then this is a very unique Unity specialization type card that just stops prevention. So it's like a sideboard tech maybe. Rune Blade's got a little bit of attention. A lot of people are saying this card seems bad. I think this card's nuts. AB2 and it can block 3. This is like the best card you could ever want against Icelander. It's crazy. Scepter of Pain seems pretty Vincent-y. And then Viserai seems to have gotten some attention because in the latest BNR announcement, they did say that Skeleta Bloodsheath is too strong to ever come back. So it looks like they gave him a tool to kind of be Bloodsheath as a card, which I'm super about, to be honest. And then Runic Reckoning. This costs less to play per rune chant you have. Your next Rune Blade attack action card gets +3. He's pretty much always going to have a rune chant. So this is like a 0 for 3, which I think is pretty good. We got Shiana specialization, which is kind of sick. And then we got some generic illusionists, right? A 0 for 5 D-React, which is kind of crazy that you can pop. Some hand manipulation. So it looks like they're giving illusionists a lot more tools for their toolbox. Pretty cool. And then our generics here, we got some interesting ones. None of them are particularly great for Rhinar, but we got an interesting like Chains of Eminence style generic attack. We got Hold the Line, which is really cool. This could ultimately be a 0 for 5 D-React, and it can prevent Arcane, which is kind of weird to think about. So it's kind of like good into hybrid decks like maybe Viserai. Anybody who's drawing cards, this card could be pretty good. And then this one I think is going to be silently one of the better cards in this set. It's a blue block 3 generic that has 2 modes. So it starts with your opponent. They choose war or peace. If they choose war, they may only activate weapon attacks and attack actions on their turn. So decks that use non-attack actions and attack actions are going to struggle if you play this card. And then if they choose peace, they may only play or activate non-weapon, non-attack actions. So this is kind of an interesting one. It's like a 1 round like hand manipulation card. It doesn't have go again, which is kind of interesting, but it is a nice chain ender. Boom. Like I'm going to do my thing on my turn, end a little early, slap this down. And now suddenly your turn got a lot more difficult to plan. And if you ate all of my damage and now you can't retaliate, it's going to be pretty impressive. I think that card is going to be really good. And then Poison the Well. Next time you would gain hero, they lose that much. I think they just don't like fatigue, healing, Warhorn, Oldhim. Okay, so let's get into the meat here. Prism is finally out with all of her brand new cards. And I like her design space so far. I think they realized how powerful a lot of her cards are, so they started her off in a very low amount of health, right? Like she's at Kano numbers. However, most of the cards she got are overtuned, right? 0 for 5 D reacts, lightning presses that buff by 4, 2 for 7 with an extra value on it attacks, right? Prism's got overpowered cards innately, but they all have downsides. And now her health is a downside. But it seems that they gave her tools for everything, right? Her figments all kind of interact uniquely with the battlefield, right? Banish manipulation, spectral shields, arcane damage, right? Recursion, right? Dominate. So a lot of really interesting choices players are going to have to make. And looking at all of her cards here, it seems like Prism is going to be, my guess is that she's going to be kind of like Oldhim, where it might take a little bit, but as soon as the meta unfolds, Prism players are going to be able to adapt and kind of play in a unique way to meet the meta, which I think is really cool. Yeah, she seems good. And my teammates are trying to break her right now. So we'll see if they find anything interesting. But yeah, looking great. Bolton got a lot of attention too. I think we all know that the charge mechanic is really what makes him struggle, because same thing with Rhinar, right? Discarding cards, charging cards lowers your VPC of all of your attacks pretty significantly, right? Instead of dividing the card by 2, you're dividing the value by 3, which is not great. However, it seems that they're trying to make it so charging you does something either immediately, something small like a +1 to your damage, or charging does something on your next turn. Creating a courage token, creating a quicken token, creating a spellbane token, right? So it's kind of like this charge mechanic is hurting you right now, but on your next turn, it's going to pay off, right? Which I think is really cool, kind of giving him like more sustained damage, more sustained tempo, more sustained VPC, right? Really good. I like a lot of his cards. He also seems to be very yellow based. It seems that yellow is going to be the direction they're going to kind of roll with light heroes, right? And I think a lot of his new yellow power cards mean that maybe he can run Grand Library, right? That would negate all of the charge issues he has, right? 5-card hands, then you can charge every single turn and have no problems whatsoever. But yeah, a lot of interesting kind of mechanics. He's going to be a tricky hero, I think. I genuinely think he's going to be slippery. I think he's going to be hard to deal with. A lot of attack reactions, a lot of like setups for big turns, right? Yeah, and there's 2 players in my local area who recently, during the RTN season, started bringing Bolton, and they're terrifying. So I can only imagine what they're going to look like with all of this support. Light cards. So we got a nice chunk of light cards to look at here. I don't feel that light cards, at least in this set, are particularly valuable. They seem a little on the safe side, right? 2 for 5 with a conditional go again. That's pretty okay, but I mean, it's kind of expensive, right? Even like the Majestic here, 0 for +2, and if it hits, it does a lot of cool stuff. But +2 is, you know, that's an Oldhim defense reaction. That's a regular defense reaction. It's not exactly like that hard to stop 2 damage. You know what I mean? So even like the Majestics seem a little on the safe side, and a lot of these cards, I think all of them don't block for 3. So yeah, and like right here, if you would be dealt damage, banish a card from your hero soul, prevent 1 of that damage. If there are no cards, destroy this, right? Like this is getting cards in your soul to prevent 1 damage. It just seems so expensive, right? They just seem a little safe to me. But that's my opinion. All right. Oh, Levia. Let's start with the banger of a card here. Boom. All right, Levia. She is the first hero to get a demi-hero treatment, and it's just freaking sick, okay? Granted, I think one half of this card is significantly better than the other half. Levia Redeemed seems to be a way to just say, I can't deal with Blood Debt anymore, turn it off, right? But you're playing a hero with no hero power at this point, right? Turn all of the cards in your banish zone face down. Transform into Levia Redeemed. Activate this ability only while it's in your inventory. You have 13 or more cards of Blood Debt in your banish zone. So you have to get to 13 cards in your banish zone. You have to be somewhere around 8 health, right? And then you turn this card on. Now, then you're playing a deck with no hero ability, which I think is kind of strange, but I kind of dig it, right? I kind of dig it. If you're stuck in a hole, you can just save yourself. This doesn't have go again, so you're kind of committing your entire turn to doing this, but I get it. It's a get out of jail free card, which is nice. It's not that free because it's only 8 health, but it's a get out of jail free card, which I think Levia really needed. Now this is the side that I'm jazzed about, okay? Well, this is an inventory. If blood debt reduces your life to 13, you may transform into this monstrosity of Blasphemophet Levia consumed. On each turn, you can play a card with blood debt from your banished zone for free. Not for free, but there's no recursion card no recursion text necessary. You can just play a card out of your banished zone, right? And then whenever a new card is put into your banished zone, it's turned face down. So you can no longer interact with the cards that are going into your banished. And then if you were to ever take blood debt, instead, banish the top card of your deck. Yeah. I mean, depending on how much blood that you have in your graveyard, right? You could banish 13 cards, 15 cards from your deck, which is kind of a lot. But this enables some really interesting play styles that I'm kind of excited to talk about. So we go back up to our new cards. I think the way I'm looking at Levia right now is as like a kind of a combo deck. Right, you're playing your value broody kind of. You're playing your value game. You're getting your graveyard filled with good cards, and then you're going to start banishing cards like you would normally with Levia. You want to get your banish zone filled pretty heftily with good cards, right? Then you're going to go down into your combo. You're going to block a bunch of damage, use your Carrion Husk, unleash like a big hard hitting card like the Death Hydra, right? Note that this doesn't discard anything. So it doesn't banish anything. You come in with like a 13, boom, leak your blood debt down, get to that number, flip Blasphemophet. All of your banish zone is now playable, and now you're just going for the fence, right? You're just gonna start swinging at your opponent, playing cards out of your banish zone, doing all your go agains. But you got a lot of really cool support, right? Another interesting thing is that they seem to have pushed Levia towards the Rhinar kind of brute style of play. Right? As an additional cost to play this, banish a card from your hand. Well, I mean, we all know that the random discard cards tend to have really bad value. So I don't know how excited the Levia players are about this, but they gave them a couple interesting tools to kind of get around it, right? Like this is pretty much exactly a Rhinar, right? 2 for 6 with a go again on a conditional. The conditional being that if you banish or discard a 6, it gets go again. I don't know how many of these cards Levias are actually going to run because there's a reason most Rhinar decks don't run them, right? However, cards like Slithering's Shadowpede, another 1 for 6. This one doesn't even have a banish clause on it, right? This is just pure gas. Doesn't block though. So yeah, I think there's going to be a couple unique play styles that open up, and even like kind of defensive Levia decks are going to be weird, right? Diabolic Offering. This comes in for 6 on defense if you jump through a hoop. Her defense reaction can be played when you flip Blasphemophet, right? That's a 2 for 6. So that means that you're spending 1 card to block 6 out of your graveyard, right? So you can even kind of like get to that turbo combo zone and still block really effectively while you're doing it, which I think is crazy. And then she got another pretty interesting power card. Granted, this doesn't turn on claws. Granted, it's kind of expensive. You pay 2. You play this card, you discard, you banish 2 cards from your hand, and you gain +4 on all of your attacks. Pretty good. Or +2, sorry, on all of your attacks. So it's kind of like a mini Blood Rush Bellows. If you have like a E-Pot, this becomes much more scary, right? So yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of combo pieces going on here, right? A lot of combo cards. Really cool. All right, Vincent. I'm more hyped about Vincent than I really thought I would be, especially after looking at her art and looking at all her cards she got. She seems to be wanting to generate as many rune chants as possible every turn, and then playing her banished cards. Let's find one. Her banished cards with Rune Gate for free. Okay. So it seems you're going to want to start your turn, banish a card from your hand, a Rune Gate card, most likely, unless it's like a Shadow of Ursa or something like that. Banish a card from your hand, make your rune chants, do your go again, play it for free, get it out of your out of your banish zone, and follow up with some attacks. And a lot of her cards do interesting things. And we were all kind of curious originally, like, why would you want to pay health for an attack? Well, a lot of her cards say, When the combat chain closes, each hero who has lost health banishes the top card of their deck. Now that's maybe a little detrimental to you, but it also, there's a lot of them that heal you. There's a lot of them that create rune chant tokens. So it seems that that one ping to yourself just means that you can activate all of your pain cards, right? All of these kind of painful cards that are pinging you for one, and then they do something special. She seems super sick. Obviously, she has the Shadow Runeblade card pool, which is pretty good. She has the Runeblade card pool, which is absolutely nuts. And then she comes with quite a few cards down here to support her. Very unique play style. Eloquence tokens here. This basically means play any one of your non-attack actions as with Go Again. She has 2 ways to generate that. Right now it's this Grimoire, and she has a Majestic that does it. I believe it's this one. Yep. So things like create 3 rune chants. You can play that with Go Again. Create 3 rune chants, warp in one of your attacks from your banish zone, follow up with some pings, get some damage out. Right. Really cool. Okay. Shadow cards. Shadow cards seem slightly better than their light counterparts. However, they tend to all only really want to interact with heroes that have cards in their soul, right? 2 for 6 with a condition, right? 2 for 6, Go Again with a condition. So if your opponent has cards in their soul, these cards are quite good. They're quite good. But if they don't have a card in their soul, a lot of these are pretty below average. Especially the Majestics. Majestics are weird, right? If you play this from your banish zone, it costs 2 less to play. A lot of them have this new text on it. So this will come in for 1. Each hero banishes a card in their arsenal. So this is a 1 cost CNC kind of, just without the damage. So yeah, very interesting. I'm really digging this set. Right now, I would say Rhinar got mildly stronger, especially with the helmet. I would say Bolton and Dorinthia got quite a bit stronger. And then for me, I'm really interested in trying to break Vincent because she has a lot of awkward hoops to jump through. And I think Levia is going to be a freight train. But that's all. Have a great day. I'll see you around.